Hi, and welcome to the workshop for Strategies for College-Level Writing, a presentation by the CASA Writing Center. Today we're going to look at some of the expectations of college-level writing. We're also going to discuss some tips for managing the writing process. We'll look at different types of processes that are available, and we will explore some of the elements of revision. So first, what is college-level writing? Well, I understand your first response is going to be, it's writing in college. Well, yes, but also no. This particular type of writing is going to have conventions that you don't see in the quote unquote outside world. So this is a specific set of formats and transitions and things like that that are used to communicate within an academic environment. These conventions are going to vary significantly depending on what it is you're writing. So, for example, if you are writing a lab report, you may not use full sentences. You may use strictly acronyms. You may focus on one particular task over others. This is because you inherently understand that in writing a lab report, what is important to the audience is the most important thing to focus on. In contrast, let's say you are writing a sternly worded email to the head of a restaurant chain that you visited where you had a really bad experience. So you're going to use a lot of example. You're going to use a lot of description. You're going to use a lot of, long language sentences with a very strong particular type of vocabulary to express your displeasure. That's what this means, having an awareness of your audience and your purpose. Using your reasons and evidence. Can't just make a claim and then not tell people where that claim came from. Using your reasons and providing evidence. Making clear claims and assertions. So somebody is reading your paper and they go, I know exactly what this person is arguing. Clear claims. And then, of course, formatting and citing your sources. So if you are writing an APA, your reader needs to be able to recognize it as APA. And then specifically, writing with confidence and authority. So one of the things that people tend to do in academic writing is they tend to do what we call hedging. Sometimes people see, or in my opinion, this particular idea is, or this could be an example of. Don't hedge. You've done the research. You are the expert. You know what you're talking about. And if you don't, revisit your research. But you are the expert. So don't hedge when you write. Make sure that you are writing at a level of confidence and authority. So as I mentioned, some different genres of writing. So I had mentioned already examples of like a lab report and a sternly worded email. You can also have a research paper. Many of you have already written these before. You know what that entails. But you can do a case study. You can have a literary analysis, meaning you are reading a story and you have to closely analyze it for clues as to what it's saying about society around them. You can do a personal narrative. Anything that you are writing that is going to be turned into your professors in college is college level writing, and it needs to be treated with that level of gravity. So one of the ways that we approach any writing task is quote unquote the writing process. Now, this is only one writing process. There are so many types of writing processes out there because there is no right way to approach the writing process. You have to find what works for you. So perhaps you don't sit down and brainstorm. Perhaps you just start drafting. Perhaps you go through and you are revising and editing at the same time. These are things that you might be able to change up in the writing process. This is a traditional option. So traditionally, what we assume is the writing process is we sit down and we brainstorm and we collect our ideas. Say I want to write on this topic. I gather my research. I make my notes. I make my outline. I kind of do some free thought paragraphing. just to see where my own thoughts are coming from. Then I move into drafting the entire document. So I sit down and I write my introduction, or I write my argument, and I craft my thesis statement. Then I go through and I revise it, make sure that it is clear and that it flows well and that it is focused. And then I go through and edit. Line editing, meaning this is where I go through and I look for the grammar mistakes and I look for spelling and I look for all those other fun things, and then I publish it. Now, publishing doesn't necessarily mean I send it out to a research journal and it gets published for the world to read. It could also mean just submitting the final draft to your professor. So, find what writing process works for you and then stick with it. Elements of a writing process. So, assess the writing assignment. You gotta know what you're gonna be writing before you start jumping into the draft. Brainstorm your ideas and connections. So, if your professor tells you to do a case study on alternative care in nursing homes, well, what are the connections you're gonna make? So, yeah, alternative care, great. Perhaps the elderly, perhaps their emotional state, perhaps their physical limitations. Look at the kinds of ideas and connections you're going to have to make to craft your argument. A quick aside, when I say argument, I mean whatever paper you're writing, because what we consider it in academia is we consider the research that you have done and the thesis that you have created is your position on this topic. It is your argument. This means people can come along and they can agree with your statement, they can disagree with your statement, what have you, but you are crafting your argument in this case. So after you have assessed, brainstormed, you start drafting. Start with a thesis statement. Start with the most basic thesis statement you can find. In this paper, I will write about the connections between blank, blank, and blank. After you have your working thesis, the most generic thesis that you can think of, then you go back and start tweaking it. You start figuring it out. After you have put down your generic thesis statement, you can begin to tweak it and make it better. So create your plan next. Say, okay, this is the argument I plan to make. This is what I want to talk about. So here's my plan. For this week, I'm going to write this much. On this day, I'm going to revise this much. On this day, I'm going to revise this much of this paper. I am taking classes myself right now, and I am doing the exact same thing. I say, this is the work that I need to get done in 1 week. So Monday, I'm going to do this particular assignment. Tuesday, I'm going to go ahead and write this particular reflection. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then on into the weekend if I need. Next, begin your writing. Can't write something if you don't put it on paper. After you have finished writing, you reread, revise, rewrite, repeat over and over until it is beautiful, and then you proofread it and submit it. So, assessing the writing assignment. You've got your directions. Teacher says, write a report on alternative care in nursing homes. So what's your subject? Okay, it's alternative care in nursing homes, but more than that, what is your subject? There are so many different topics when it comes to alternative care. There are so many different topics when it comes to nursing homes. Are you going to focus on motion in the elderly by incorporating yoga? Are you going to work on music memory therapy? What is going to be your topic, your subject? Then, what's your purpose? Why are you writing this paper? Hint, it's not to turn it in and get a grade. You have an audience in mind. Let's go back to the yoga and geriatric patients. So, if I am writing about increasing flexibility in geriatric patients by incorporating yoga procedures into their physical therapy, my audience is going to be physical therapists. It's going to be people who are planning their long-term care. It is going to be the daughter who's watching her mom's joints freeze up and she's wanting to figure out what she can do. This is why audience is going to be the next thing that you need to consider when considering your purpose. Are you informing that daughter, hey, here are the moves that'll help your mom's knees? Are you telling that physical therapist you are doing a disservice by not incorporating these moves? What is your purpose and who are you writing to? Once you've figured out your purpose, what do your readers know or expect? So, If you are writing to a physical therapist, it's perfectly acceptable to assume that your audience is going to understand some of the high medical terminology if they are already physical therapists. If your audience is not physical therapists, if you are writing to lay persons, choose your vocabulary wisely. So let's say you were writing to laypersons about physical therapy. Now you're going to have to explain some things. You're going to have to explain what some of their terminology is. I will admit I am not an expert in physical therapy or any of these topics. I'm pulling these examples off the top of my head. I'm hoping you understand what my point is. The next thing is, what is the available information? Where are you going to get your research? Are you going to go and actually dig through dusty old archives? Are you going to go to the databases? Are you going to go to an actual physical therapy center and watch elderly patients do yoga? How are you going to collect your information? And then what is your constraint? Constraints means parts of your writing process that is going to change how you approach things. So what is the length? If you only have 3 pages to say 20 sources worth of information, you're going to have to be real precise, real concise. What is the genre? Are you writing a research paper? Are you writing a case study? Are you writing a brochure? Are you writing a lab report? These are the things you have to consider. Same with deadline. If you're taking a class, you don't have 6, 8, 10, 12 months to research this. You have to do it quickly, which means you will have to make choices. And then, of course, formatting. So approaching the project, again, that's going to be one of those things where you've got to break it into parts. Set your manageable goals. Create your calendar. You are busy people. Most of you probably have full-time jobs. I know how difficult that is. Break your project into smaller parts. Make sure that you are setting manageable goals. Don't say, I'm going to write the entire literature review on Tuesday. Lit reviews can be very dense and very heavy. Break it up. Say to yourself, I'm going to write for an hour every day. I'm going to write, for 30 minutes in the morning, an hour in the evening. Give yourself time to work on these particular assignments. And then limit your distractions. You might be a full-time employee. You might also be a full-time parent. You might be taking care of elderly parents. You might have needy pets. Who knows what the distraction is? So, limit your distractions. Let your children or your parents know, hey, I need this time. Find ways to incorporate your research or planning processes into other moments of your day. So, do you jog? Do you swim? Do you, have a quiet time in the morning? Use that time to kind of process. Think about what you're writing. Make sure that what you're doing is going to be effective for you, though. Don't try and force something. I am not a runner, so I would not incorporate jogging into my writing process. I wouldn't. I might do yoga. I'm definitely going to sit and drink coffee. But know yourself first and foremost, and then figure out what your distractions are. So here are some brainstorming techniques. Many of you have done brainstorming before. My favorites are discussing ideas with others and then free writing, but use what is best for you. When drafting a working thesis, you're going to want to try and answer questions. Your working thesis is going to be that real generic thesis that I spoke about just a moment ago. You're going to brainstorm your topic and you're going to think to yourself, okay, I like these connections. I want to talk about the use of emotional support pets in rehab facilities. This is going to be a good topic. Okay, so now you've got some information together. Put that down as your generic thesis and then start honing it from there. Tips for creating your thesis statement is, does your research, does your idea answer a question, propose a solution to a problem, or take a position in a debate? Theoretically, it should. At all times, you should either be answering a question, even if you're writing just an informative piece. You are answering the question of, what is this? Then Make sure that all of your answers, quote unquote, can be supported by the available evidence. If you have an idea that cannot be supported by the available evidence, then you can talk about that as a gap in the research, but don't try to focus on it unless you're writing a dissertation and you're going to do the research to fill that gap. A working thesis statement is a focused statement that will develop as you draft your paper. This is no joke. You will sit down to write a paper, and as you start to write, you will be changing that thesis statement. Do not get hung up on trying to prove your thesis so hard that you miss writing the actual argument you're making. Understand that your thesis will change, and be prepared to be flexible. Creating your plan. I'm not an outliner. I never have been an outliner. However, I've had to learn how to begin to outline, because if I don't outline my papers, I will ramble. So start by creating an informal outline. I literally just do dash marks on a piece of paper. First, I want to talk about this. Here's some evidence that I want to put in. Next, I want to talk about this topic. Here's some evidence that I might want to put in. This will help keep you on track. It'll also help you remember what you've already written and not talk yourself in circles. Consider a visual organizer. Make your relationships between thesis statement and major topics and subtopics. You can use a mind map. You can use a formal sentence level outline. Just remember that everything needs to point back to your thesis, and it needs to be in such a manner that you can glance at it and know where you are in your writing. Next step in the process is begin the writing. Find an environment where you're comfortable. I know that this is not something that is always feasible. Sometimes you are grabbing 15-20 minutes on a metal fold-out chair in a break room somewhere, but that's okay. Put yourself in the mindset of writing and know that your rough draft is okay if it sounds like trash. Make sure you have all your necessary materials. So if you're going to grab that 15 or 20 minutes in the break room, make sure that you have your research saved in a folder that is quickly and easily accessible on your laptop. Don't be too hard on yourself. Don't try to make all your sentences work. Sometimes you just got to get the gist of an idea on paper and then move on. Let it marinate. You can work on that part later. And then writing takes time. Take the breaks as needed. Also, start early enough that you have the time. The minute your professors give you the assignment, start the process. I don't care if you have 3 or 4 weeks to do the paper. Start it now. One of the things that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to write and then stop and reread and edit as you go. I'm going to heavily suggest against this. Some people do it well. I find that what will happen is I'll take longer writing and editing if I try to edit as I write. Plus, what happens is if you've edited up a paragraph and it sounds fantastic, and then you move down 3 or 4 paragraphs in your writing and you realize that first paragraph that's beautifully edited, it's not necessary, you wasted time. So my suggestion to you to make all of this process easier is to just write down your quick and dirty draft. First and foremost, put it on paper. Don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about spelling. Don't worry about whether or not it makes any kind of sense. Just get your thoughts on the paper. Then, and this is the important part, go back, revise, and re-edit. One of the things that will happen as you're writing is you will come up against writer's block. I don't care how many times I know a topic. I will still sit down to write a paper and get to a section where I'm like, I don't know what to write anymore. It's okay. Manage your writer's block. You're not gonna fix it. You're not gonna get rid of it. So manage it. Do the parts you like first. So people have this idea that writing is a linear task, that you start at line 1 and you write all the way to line, 533. No, that's not how it's done. Each paper has sections. You have your introduction. You have your conclusion, you have your background section, you have your methods section, you have your discussion section. Write the sections you like. Usually how I attack a paper, I'll do my working thesis, quick and dirty thesis, and then I will write the argument of the paper. Forget introducing it, forget concluding it. I'll just write the argument, straight argument. Then After I've done that, I know what I can introduce. I know what information I need to introduce. I know what information I need to conclude. It comes easier. Once you have gotten all of that on paper, the rest of the connections come later. Write a zero draft. Zero draft, again, is going to be just put words on paper. Don't worry about anything else. Just sit down, clack, 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 done. And of course, reward yourself. I know it sounds silly, but you're doing hard work. You are doing good hard work. You need to remind yourself that everything you're accomplishing is amazing. All right. Now you've written your paper. It's trash, and that's okay. Now let's look at revision. This is where we make our first trashy draft sound good. I love to hear when people tell me, I'm a terrible writer. I don't know how to write. My response to them, and I've been doing this kind of work for the last 20 years, my response to them is I'm a terrible writer too. It's fantastic. You know where I excel though is in revision. That is where you will excel as a writer. Your first draft is going to be trash, and that is okay. But your revised drafts, those are going to be the winners. So what exactly is revision? Let's look at the word itself. Revision. Look again. It's to look at your text from a different perspective with the intent to change or improve. It's an ongoing process of rethinking, reworking, recreating. Some suggestions for revisions, and I stand by these wholeheartedly. Distance yourself from your writing. This is why we suggest you start writing quickly when you're assigned something. Because if you can give yourself at least a day or so away from your writing, you will have forgotten enough of it that you can hear how it sounds when you go back to reread it. Honestly, the more time you can give it, if you can give it 2 to 3 days, fantastic. If you can only give it a couple of hours, that's okay. Get up, walk away from it. Don't go to another task. Walk away, refresh your brain, let your brain reset and relax, and then come back to your paper. The next thing that you're going to want to do is read your paper out loud. You're going to be surprised at how many small mistakes you will find when you read your paper out loud. And you don't have to read to anybody. Literally sit at your computer and just read your line by line out loud. When I'm working with clients in the Writing Center, one thing that I hear quite a bit, especially from my graduate students, is, oh, I didn't realize I missed a word. Oh, I didn't realize that was a fragment. And that's what the point of reading out loud is. Our brains do this thing where we have expectations in the sentence about what is supposed to come next. And so our brains fill in those expectations. That is one of those things that you can actually go and study about in linguistics. Our brains expect a certain set of words to come after something in a sentence. So it will fill it in. So if you're missing the little articles, or if you're missing a word, your brain will gloss over it and you won't see it when you write it. This is why you need to distance yourself, because when you come back to it, then it's a new, quote unquote, new document. So reading your paper out loud is a different task than reading it silently, because now what has happened is your brain is diverting power basically from filling in the expected information that's going to come next to creating it vocally. This means that you'll start to notice your mistakes. This is just going to be the first thing that you can do. It'll help you immensely. You can also have somebody else read your paper, anybody else. It does not have to be a trained writing consultant. Now, a trained writing consultant can help you quickly notice where you have made mistakes, where you have grammatical errors, where you have flow and consistency issues, and we can help you revise them. But if you don't have the time, somebody else reading it to you, because they don't know what you've written about. So they'll ask you questions. What does this mean? And you'll know where you need to expand on your explanation. Or they will, read a sentence and it'll sound foreign to you, so you'll have to look at it again. Big questions to ask when you're reviewing it with another person is, do you understand what I'm saying? I'm going to suggest going to somebody who's not in your major to have them read it over. Because again, you know what you mean, but I might not. So theoretically, if you were to bring your research to me as an English major, I would look it over and I would say, hey, I don't understand what this topic means. Can you explain that? And then you would know, for the purpose of your audience, where you need to expand. One of the best ways to go about the revision process, in all honesty, is to do what is called global revision and then local revision. Global revision is going to be the big stuff. Who is your audience? What are you trying to say? Does it have a thesis statement? Does it flow? Is it choppy? Does it make sense? Are your arguments making sense? Have you engaged the reader? Have you written a boring paper? All of these things, this is going to be considered global. The reason it's considered global is because we're not focusing on, is your comma in the right spot just yet. Just yet. These next couple of screens have some questions on it that you should keep on hand while doing some global revision work. Feel free to pause the screen and take screenshots or write these questions down to keep them nearby as you're revising. Once you've gotten the global revisions out of the way, then you move to the local revisions, the sentence level revisions, grammar, punctuation, formatting requirements. Make sure that you are using topic sentences and transitions. Make sure that you are letting your reader know, hey, this paragraph is going to talk about this particular idea. And here's how it connects to the last idea I just talked about. That's where your transitions come in. A transition sentence, if I can give you a physical image, is a sentence that is holding the hand of the paragraph in front of it and holding the hand of the paragraph behind it. This means it links them together. It is making them one cohesive idea, even if they're discussing different topics in that idea. That idea is your thesis statement. Make sure that you are staying on topic in each paragraph. Easiest way to do that is to use the MEAL method, M-E-A-L. That is main idea, evidence that proves your main idea, analysis of the evidence and main idea's meaning, and then how is it going to link into the next paragraph. Another way is to read your paper out loud with the purpose to proofread for grammar. So, as you're reading, this should be your second time through. As you're reading and you find yourself not reading a sentence correctly, stop and look at the grammar. I know we've all done it when we've read something out loud and we expect it to be a question and it ends up being a period or something like that. So you're like, read the paper out loud? Oh, wait, no. Read the paper out loud. So listen to your intonation. How are you physically saying the sentence? If it doesn't match the actual paragraph, if it doesn't match the actual grammar on the page, then take another look at it. Take a look at your commas. Commas are a very, very common grammatical error. I am so bad with comma splicing. I have to go back every single time and double check all of my commas. And then use your resources that are available to you as a student. Come to the Writing Center. If you don't have time, go to our webpage. I'll have the link here in a couple of slides. Go to our resources page and download some of our handouts. We've got handouts on commas. We've got handouts on clauses. We've got handouts on punctuation. We can help you with these things. We've got online and in-person sessions as well. We also, in fall and spring, have hours on Sundays. There are options for you. Some final tips for your success. Revision is an imperative part of the college level writing process. Your professors go through the revision process. There has never been a good writer who has submitted a successful first draft. There are always problems. Use the Writing Center to your benefit. You already pay for us. If you're not physically in person, we have plenty of online opportunities for you. Give yourself plenty of time to work on the paper. The more things that you have pulling on your time, the earlier you need to be starting your work. And then have someone read the paper out loud to you, a colleague, a Writing Center consultant. Devil take it, Word even has the function where it'll read it out loud to you, and that will help you hear where your paper has gone wrong. Use the tools that are available to you. If you have any questions about anything that I have discussed in today's workshop, or if you'd like to make an appointment with us, please feel free to go to casa.tamucc.edu or scan our convenient QR code. If none of those options are available, call us at 825-3490, email us at casa@tamucc.edu, or just drop into the Glasscock Building, room 112 on campus. No matter what, we at the Writing Center are here to help you. Thank you so much for letting me speak with you today about academic writing. Again, if you ever have questions or concerns, please come and see us at the Writing Center or reach out to us. We are always willing to help. Good luck on your writing projects, good luck on your upcoming semester, and as always, go Islanders!